All right, everybody. Time for the Guns of Grand Master, episode 2. I like to run down the guns that I made Grand Master with in USPSA because I've made it in a few divisions and still working on it. Probably going to make it in a few more. So I think it's an interesting topic for a couple reasons. One, I'd like to show you that you can do it too. All right. I've been picked last for every sport I ever played in school. I'm not God's gift to anything athletic, but if you put your mind to this and you do the work, you can do it. All right. And so if this gets you to step off on that journey, I've accomplished my goal. The other thing is that there's a lot of mystique around the guns that do it. So, me being at the pro level in the industry, there's probably people out there who think like I get special guns and they have this special voodoo magic about them that is somehow they can't get them. The industry was certainly like that when I was coming up. People like Jerry Micklick or Rob Romero, Greg Jordan, all kinds of the top level pros. You could buy their gun. They had whatever model gun, but yours wasn't like theirs. Keith Garcia was another one. Like, you could buy a Cobalt rifle, but it's not like Keith's. This kind of thing. And so here to show you that there ain't nothing special about my guns. You can buy these guns too if you want. But also, being in the industry, being in sales, and having done retail sales for a long time, retail gun sales for guns like this. The shop I was at, we sold high-end stuff like this, and they still do. armsandarms.com, they have this kind of stuff in stock. If you want to go check it out, tell them I sent you. And I want to show that, or what I ran into while I was doing that, is a lot of times when people are buying a gun like this, there's kind of two kinds of people that buy guns like this. There are the people that just buy the good one because they can. So they go into the store, they'll ask someone, or they'll call Atlas, hey, I want the ultimate. What is that? I'll have that. They have whatever it costs, they order it. Those kinds of people don't watch videos like this. All right. Or there's the other people who are, this is a serious amount of money. Maybe this is a holy grail gun for them. They're gonna shoot their shot and buy a premium pistol to participate in the sport with. But it's not an inconsequential amount of money to them. So they want to make the right choice. And I see paralysis by analysis on some of the really little features that ultimately, I'm here to tell you, don't matter. All right. I've seen people hold up and not be able to pull the trigger, pardon the pun, on a pistol like this because they weren't sure what length of trigger they wanted. Short, medium, long. Couldn't get past it. Shielded or not shielded safeties. Months held up. They could have had their gun, in the time they spent deciding some of these things. So I'm here to show you, how I set up mine and guns that I use, but also I'm here to tell you that this kind of stuff is not what's holding you back. All right. And when you're at, Grandmaster essentially means you're at the top 5%, or you execute at the top 5% of the sport for some amount of time. All right. And that's a mental game. All right. When we're talking about this stuff, this is stuff that you could maybe measure on a timer, but really it's up here. It's, if you're going to spend the kind of time with the guns to win matches, be high level finisher at matches, or classify master grandmaster with, you're going to spend a lot of intimate time with the gun. And so picking some of these choices is just what makes the gun feel, because this is an intimate relationship. All right, I could probably make grandmaster with a Glock if I wanted to, but I don't want to, so I don't. So what are the guns that I did this with? That is the point of story time with Adam here today. All right. So when I set out to up my classification, essentially I shot USPSA as a cross training sport for 3-gun. Three gun has always been my, not always, but from the very beginning was pretty much my primary sport. And USPSA was something I just filled weekends with. And so I had a classification that kind of represented that, right? So I was B class for a long time, all right? I was on the Pro Series, the Three Gun Nation Pro Series, B class in USPSA. It didn't quite make sense. And for a while I didn't care, but then I got to a place where I cared, and I wanted my classification to be more representative of where I was at. And so I started working on getting my classification up. And because USPSA wasn't my primary sport at the time, my goal was master. All right, so I was really just trying to get master in a division. And the first division I really picked to go after was limited, because essentially limited is the big bore version of the pistols that we were shooting in three gun at the time. So a lot of times three gun, in TAC optics or limited, they're limited at the time, you're shooting a 9mm high capacity handgun of some kind. And so I had the most time on limited-esque guns. So I thought that would be the easiest jump for me. But to actually make master in this sport, it is incentivized to shoot 40. All right, so I didn't have a 40 gun at the time. I was working on getting one. But we'll get to that in a second. But essentially, I didn't have one at the time. Got one ordered, but as is the case with a lot of these guns, once you order them, you do have to wait a little bit. And so I started really buckling down on the goal of getting master in limited division with this gun. This gun is not even mine. This gun's owner and I have a good relationship, and essentially I was like, hey bro, could I borrow your 40 Atlas and work with that while I'm waiting for mine? And we have that kind of relationship that he said yes. This is a particularly special gun because this is from the era of Atlas Gunworks where you could still get a custom gun. All right, so this one doesn't have a name. You can't buy one like this. Don't even call and ask them, because they will chastise you. Well, actually, they'll probably be very nice about it, but they're going to tell you no. This is a 1 of 1, and this is how my friend ended up with it, because he's into that kind of thing. But this is what I believe to be one of the prototype or transitional models into what became the Artemis. The Artemis pistol was originally developed as an IPSC world shoot pistol, because in that year there were some Team Atlas guys who were going to the IPSC world shoot, the handgun world shoot, and they needed a pistol that fits in the box. The Nemesis doesn't fit in the box. So essentially they were trying to abbreviate the features of the Nemesis that they liked, and get it into the best version of a gun that would fit in the box. And so this is one of the prototype models that they did that with. And it's a prototype because this is a 4.5 inch or a 4.6 inch island barrel gun. All right, so the barrel doesn't go all the way to the end there. This is an island barrel. So this is a 40 with a shorter, I think it's 4 1/4, 4.5 threaded barrel with island, and also has a sight tracker on it. All right, so that is why you can't get a gun like this. This is why everyone's going to ask for a gun like this, because they want that island barrel feature, because it's so sexy. But it is some intricate gunsmithing to do. It adds a ton of time and a ton of cost to the build, so they do not do it anymore. They swore that this is the last one they will ever do, and that is why I have a standing offer to buy this one if its owner ever wants it to leave. Dibs. Sorry, but dibs is dibs. So this is a short barrel 40 island barrel gun. It has a Schumann barrel in it. This was before Atlas was OEMing their own barrels. So there is an era of Atlas pistols where they used a variety of barrels. Schumann's are some. I have some other guns that have Schumann's in them. KKM would be another one that they used a lot of, and that was par for the course at the time. So short barrel 40 island barrel is what makes this pistol what it is, and that's super sexy. The idea around the island or sight tracker barrels is that the front sight is on a quasi-stationary block or an island, so that under recoil this does not move as much as it would on a slide that is reciprocating. And that's the same thing with the rib on the barrel as well. In addition to trying to put non-reciprocating mass up top, or making mass that would be reciprocating on a traditional 1911 style slide, now it's mass that doesn't move, and that would translate into what recoil feels like. And that's either something you can feel or you can't. Probably more you can as the time goes on that you spend time with the guns. But as far as the sight not reciprocating, I can't tell. I honestly, I have not met very many. I've met a few people that claim that they could, and they were like swore by it. By and large, it's gun guy stuff that we think is cool. All right. But especially when it's on the island here. So can I actually see and shoot the gun better because the sight doesn't reciprocate? I'm not going to look straight into the camera and tell you that I need that. It does, however, manipulate what the recoil impulse feels like, and that's pretty cool. All right, so it affects both the balance of the pistol, reciprocating mass like we talked about, but also timing of the unlock. You know, when does the barrel unlock and what is the pressure at that point? All of that translates into what this recoil feels like. Recoil on any pistol is essentially a layered cake of individual things. Like, this is the pistol cycling, right? When you shoot the gun, you feel all this stuff, and there's a cartridge going off, right? So all of this together is what the recoil impulse feels like. If we put a different rate spring in here, that changes it. If this unlocks a little bit smoother, all right, if there isn't like a little hitch when it unlocks, you can feel that. If it slams forward, you know, if it slams hard into battery, that's stuff you can feel. And that all translates into the recoil impulse. And that's some of what they were playing with on this gun as they were developing a model. But ultimately, the way model development goes, they built it out into a complete gun, threw it up on the website, and sold it to recoup their cost. This era of pistol also had, this is when they were using Phoenix grip. So this is a Phoenix Evo, PT Evo grip in steel. It has an a brass magwell on the bottom, so the heavy magwell. So this gun is pretty heavy. I didn't put it on a scale. Also has a butler cut on it. That's pretty rare for Atlas to do. I wish they would do it more. I advocate for that every chance I get. Alas, they don't do it. It's more machining steps, among other things. But man, it is. I just love the way it looks. Can't help it. PT Evo grip. Both this user or this owner and myself are left-handed, so it has biased left-handed safeties on it. Medium flat trigger, standard match weight fair on the trigger job, and that's what this pistol is. Now, if I were to paint by numbers what a limited gun would be for me, this would be it. I tried to buy this gun, but you know, he got it first. I asked him if they would make me this gun. They said no. They weren't going to do a gun like this again. But I told them what I was trying to do. I was like, well, I'm really trying to class up in limited, and you know, I'm trying to get a proper 40 limited gun, so I could take advantage of major. I have limited minor guns. Wanted a major gun. That's what we were talking about. And they're like, well, if you really, really want one, we can get you one. But that takes time, and that's how I ended up with this gun. So I spent almost a full winter season, which where I live, that's a pretty big indoor shooting season for us, and dry fire season on this gun while I was waiting for my gun. In fact, I spent so much time dry firing this one, not so much round count, but dry fire. I chewed the heck out of this magwell on the bottom, and this one has the inserts in it. So before I gave it back, I actually put a fresh insert in here because I scarred this thing up to a rude extent. I practicing with this gun. And all of that, I only made A class. Before it was summertime, it was back to 3-gun, and I had to put the classification goal down for a second. I didn't make it that first year, and only made it to A class with this gun. And this gun is everything that I would spec if I were building a limited gun. But part of the magic of Atlas, especially in that era of the guns, the models were built around a specific discipline. And they said, if you are really trying to go hard at limited, the gun to have is the Nemesis. And I was like, I like the Nemesis. And they're like, Nemesis. And I was like, I had, to that point, I had never shot a long slide gun that I liked. There was an era of time where 6-inch guns were popular. Never shot a 6-inch gun that I liked, ever. And I shot some nice ones. I spent a lot of time with a Glock 34. I started out in 3-gun and a Glock 34. Man, you weren't cool. You weren't cool if you weren't shooting a Glock 34. Never loved that pistol. Still have it, but never loved it. And so I was like, well, I don't know. And they're like, if that's what you want to do, this is what you need. Fine. Okay. What do I got to do to get in one of those? Well, at this time, they were transitioning from what now would be called a V1 gun. So V1 guns with either the PT grips or the Chile grips. And the Atlas grips were coming out. The adjustable panel grips were coming out. And so they said, well, we have a demo gun, or a couple demo guns, and they're like, we'll get you one of those when they come in, because we're going to swap those out so that the customer facing guns are V2 guns. When those guns come back, they'll get a rebuild on them. You're going to shoot the hell out of it anyway, so you'll get one of those guns. And for whatever reason, those guns got snapped up, sold, bartered away. And when I was like, hey, when's that gun coming? They're like, oh, we're still working on it. And ultimately ended up with this gun. Now, if you look at this gun really close, you can tell that this is not a V1 gun. I think this gun, either they sold all of the sample models and they had promised me one, or what I think is more likely, this one was ordered and not paid for. And so they said, hey, twist of fate, we have a V2 gun available. Do you want this one? And I said, yes, I do. Because at first it was like, well, I don't care if it's a V1 gun. Like, I'm just fine with that. But, I wanted the panels like everybody else. So they're like, wait, good news, we got a V2 gun. Sweet, I'm in. And this is the gun that they sent me. And so this gun is the gun that I went from A class to Grand Master with. More of that story. So at the time, working where I work at Vortex, we were coming out with a red dot product. So I was actually, that second winter, after I went hard and didn't make it with limited, it's like, well, it's really time to shoot dot guns. I'm going to go carry optics. So I was shooting carry optics really hard. And the way our classifier matches work, at least in our region, one of the things you can do is you can sign up or enter the match multiple times. Well, 2 times. You can enter the match 2 times, but you have to be in different divisions. So I was like, well, I have carry optics. Limited optics was not a thing yet. So I was shooting limited carry optics. And then I was like, well, I can score in another division, so which one should I do? I debated single stack. Always loved single stack. Still love single stack. We'll get there. Should I shoot a single stack gun? I don't know. I wasn't training single stack at the time, so I didn't know if the reloads would be that good. I was like, well, carry optics gun is, the easy option would be open, but my 3-gun open pistols are open minor pistols, so that didn't seem like a terribly attractive option. Or I could shoot limited. I was like, well, the reloads will be about the same, but I'm not really on iron sights right now, so I'm not super sharp on iron sights, but ultimately decided to try with limited gun, just trying to get scores, just trying to move my rolling average up to where I could come back to it later. So shot carry optics and limited at that match. Shot carry optics first, and then came around for my limited run. And this was the gun that I shot my first Grand Master score with. My goal at the time was only Master, because USPSA wasn't my primary sport. So I thought Master was a reasonable, humble goal, achievable goal. But the catch of Master is in the journey on Master, you're gonna peg a couple Grandmaster scores. I bet you dime to a donut you hit a couple Grandmaster scores. And the first time you shoot a Grandmaster score is like, oh, that's what that feels like. That's Grandmaster. That was Grandmaster. You kidding me? Well, I can do that. Goal line moved. I'm going for Grandmaster, baby. But this was the first gun that I shot a Grandmaster score with, and I was not training on it at the time. I was training on my carry optics gun. I just picked this one up cold out of the safe, brought it to the match just to see. Shot my first GM score with this gun. Never actually, to date, I have not shot a GM score with the carry optics gun. All right. Rattled that one off cold. Holy cow. Shot my first Grandmaster score with this gun. In the meantime, limited optics came out. All right. And so that was where, if you go back to episode 1, the first division I made GM in was limited optics. As soon as that happened, man, I was all in on that. and you know, that story's in there, but it made Grandmaster in limited optics. And so fell in love with the process along the way. I like the journey, and I like these kinds of goals. It's a fulfilling thing for me to work on. That I just like it. So I switched guns and did it again, man. When it came around the next winter, I actually decided to work on single stack, because my true love is single stack. So I was like, all right, well, I know how to do this process, and I'm gonna go hard at single stack. Same thing, go into the match, you can enter more than one time, focused on single stack, but hey, lightning struck once, maybe it'll strike again. I would bring my limited gun with and post up scores. My average kept rolling up. I was actually improving on both of them, but went to a couple of matches, and ultimately, while I was training and going for GM and single stack, actually pegged enough scores to get across the finish line for Grandmaster with this pistol. And that's why I think this pistol is special, and it warrants telling the story. Because again, I'm here to tell you that it's not the guns, it's the shooter that moves you along the journey. Now, you have to be passionate, and you have to like the guns that you do this with, but the guns themselves aren't the ones that do it. And so, but for me, this gun is pretty much magic. And anyone who wants to throw the paper GM title in my direction, I can pick this gun up cold and shoot GM with it anytime I want. In fact, as of this recording, I did that just last week in limited 10. I'm on the bubble for GM in limited 10, but same thing. I'm training other divisions right now, but hey, we had a classifier match, brought this gun there, shot some high 90 or some GM scores, some high master scores, and even pegged a hundo with this gun when I'm not directly training with it, because it just works. So while people they're attracted to custom, they like the idea of, well, this one is made just the way I want it, and this is one of one, which is cool as a gun guy. But if your goal is performance, these guns were made for performance. All right, this was designed to be the best thing you could get for a limited gun in USPSA, and that is 100% what it is, as much as I fought that. So quick rundown on what a Nemesis is as far as being a limited gun. So Nemesis is a 5.4 inch barrel, island barrel. So it's really a 5-inch barrel and then 5.4 length, if you will. But the end of the barrel, you can see there, the end of the barrel is not actually, or the block there is not actually rifled. That's not, it's just a weight and a fulcrum threaded on the end there. So 5-inch barrel, 5.4 overall length, 40 Smith & Wesson to make major. Capacity versus major, 40 Smith & Wesson is really where it's at there. I actually load a bastardized version of 40. My 40 is more like 10 millimeter length. If you're a reloader guy, you can go look that up. Check your chamber before you do that kind of thing. But 40 Smith & Wesson is most popular in limited division in USPSA. It's kind of a miserable caliber to shoot because it's so much higher pressure than 9 millimeter, for example, or 45 for that matter. That it's a very harsh gun to shoot, especially in a lot of the guns it's chambered in, like Glocks, M&Ps, things of this nature. I had an Infinity gun for a while, and I used to say the Infinity gun made 40 go from miserable to tolerable in a caliber to shoot, and I accepted that because it scored better. When I went from that Infinity, I never actually liked that particular gun. There's a couple places where it needed more grip and it didn't have it, and then there were a couple places where it needed to be deburred and it wasn't, so it cut me a lot. A gun that cuts you isn't going to stick around very long in this sport. So ended up trading it away. But between the Nemesis and that Infinity made 40 tolerable. This gun feels like it was made to shoot 40. All right, 40 was made for this gun. Like, it makes 40 actually fun to shoot, even in factory loadings, which is kind of a weird thing. But this is kind of the ultimate 40 caliber limited machine. I spec'd it out with a short trigger. I can do short or medium. Really, I can shoot any of the triggers. Honestly, I've played with them all. Prefer one of those two with a nod towards short. Even though I wear large size gloves to give you an idea of how big my hands are, and I like the shorter triggers because I feel like you have more dexterity and control as your finger is bent over a little bit more versus being out straight. Whereas if it's out here, I just don't feel like I have as much control as when I pull it in close to me. Same with like doing a reload. If you're trying to do a reload out here versus workspace, same concept. Your finger works better when it's cammed over a little bit. So that's why I pick the short trigger, but it really doesn't matter. But if you have a choice, I pick short one. I use, again, the left-handed biased non-shielded safeties. My deal with shielded safeties is I don't like anything that pushes me away from the center line of the gun. So I want to get as high on the gun as I can and as close to center of the gun as I can to control the recoil. I feel like the shielded safeties push me away from the gun, and I don't like the way that feels. Now, I could probably I don't know that we could measure the difference between those two. And this is one of those things where people are like, which one should I get? I don't want to push on the slide and cause a malfunction. I push on that slide all the time. I can tell you it doesn't matter. But I don't like the way the shielded safeties feel. Now, if the gun was cutting me, maybe I would feel different, but it doesn't cut me. So I use the non-shielded version of the safeties. The gun comes with a heavy steel grip that gives it its balance and its weight. I don't add more weight into it though. The grip, the side panels are aluminum. When for a time you could get the panels in aluminum, steel, or brass to manipulate the weight here. And then the mag wells were the same thing, aluminum, steel, brass. I picked aluminum because on this gun, it has very much a dumbbell effect. So while we added more non-reciprocating mass, it's also far away from the focal point of the gun. So this is weight that can move the gun quite a bit. So I try to minimize that. I'll add weight, but it has to be towards the center of the gun. That's why I picked aluminum for both of these. Now, pros and cons. The con of the aluminum magwell, as you can see here, it gives up the ghost a little bit. When you actually crash your mag into it and need it to deflect off into your magazine well, I feel like it absorbs a little bit of that energy while it deforms. Now, it's not like it gets stuck there like a fork, but I feel it's kind of a dead blow hammer. Like you hit and it doesn't deflect as much in there. It absorbs a little bit of the energy. Whereas steel magwells, I feel like they're harder, so the deflection factor is a little bit higher. So while a steel magwell would add more weight on the bottom here, which I did not want, for actually being a magwell, steel I think is probably the best compromise of the options, being camped out in weight between these two. For the actual palm swells here, I use a full panel on both sides for a couple reasons. One, the way my hands are sized, I don't actually get much on the half step model. That's the most popular. I don't get very much contact with that because my thumb is stacked in here, that the palm of my grip really doesn't get much contact with it. So I'm really contacting this front part here with my support hand. And then the other reason I like it too is because the way my particular hands grip or wrap around here, it gives me a little bit of a ledge to actually grab onto and dig into. I actually, most of the time, it came off here recently, but I most of the time have a piece of grip tape on there for a little bit of added traction. I feel like I can grip more with the primary hand with a full panel on there, and then I have more real estate to put my support hand on there. So I go full panel on both sides, non-shielded, biased, wide safety. And other than that, this is a standard Nemesis, just like you can order right off the website. Hell, you can even put in the notes you want the AMAX Nemesis. They won't know what you're talking about, but I'll find out, and it'll make me feel good. But this is just a run-of-the-mill Nemesis. They asked me, you know, the small parts that I wanted on there before they sent it out, and other than that, this is just like the one that you can buy. This one wasn't even built for me, and this is the winningest gun that I have. All right, so I shot my first Grand Master score with it. I made Grand Master with this gun when I wasn't even trying. I won my first major USPSA match with this gun, a section level match, the best I ever did at a section level match, shooting this gun. So while paint by numbers, it's not what I would pick in terms of raw performance, which is what we're looking for in competition guns. Raw performance in limited division, this is the one, and this particular one is mine. So there's an up close look at my limited Atlas Gunworks Nemesis, and a little bit of story time with AMAX on making Grand Master in limited division. To date, I am Grand Master in 3 divisions, so I have at least one more story to tell in this series, and who knows, maybe we'll get some other guns and do it in other divisions. So I hope you found that interesting. If you're looking at purchasing an Atlas gun, I hope maybe that was some insight into some of the options that you can spec out as you spec out your pistol. If you have other questions, get at me on Instagram or down in the comments. I'm happy to talk about any of this stuff with you. But at the end of the day, just pick and go out shooting. Yeah, so hopefully it helps you maybe make some purchasing decisions, which is probably why you found this video. And hey, if you want to be a USPSA Grand Master, it's just work. You just got to do it. But hopefully we'll see you guys out there on the range soon.